depths of time, before the shaping of the lands we know, before the first footsteps of elves or men marked the earth, there stood two trees whose divine radiance kindled the very heart of creation itself. Their light, a perfect fusion of silver and gold, painted the skies of Valinor in hues so sublime that even the Valar themselves would pause in wonderment at their beauty. This is the tale of the two trees that lit an entire world, a story of creation and destruction, of light and darkness, and of a beauty so profound that its loss would forever alter the fabric of Arda itself. To comprehend the true magnitude of these trees, we must first return to the very dawn of creation, when the world was young and darkness held dominion over all. In these earliest days, Arda was shaped by the music of the Ainur, but the physical world lay in shadows, illuminated only by the distant stars that Vada, queen of the Valar, had kindled in the heavens. The Valar, those great powers who had descended into the world to fulfill the vision of Eru Ilúvatar, sought to bring light to their realm in Almaren. Their first attempt manifested in the creation of two mighty lamps, Iluin in the north and Ormul in the south. These great pillars of light stood as beacons in the darkness, their radiance mixing in the middle regions of Middle-earth. Yet this first age of light was not to last. Melkor, the great enemy who had woven discord into the very music of creation, cast these lamps down in his malice. As the mighty pillars fell, the shape of all Arda was changed. The light spilled across the land, darkness descended, and the world became twisted and broken. The falling pillars shattered the earth, raising new seas in their wake. The lamp's light spilled forth, destroying flame poured across the world. The destruction of the lamps cast a lingering shadow upon the hearts of the Valar, a bitter reminder of the malice that lay dormant in Melkor's soul. They began to sense that Melkor's hunger for dominance would not abate, that he would bring ruin to any creation forged with purity and light. This dark foreknowledge would haunt them even as they withdrew to Valinor, and it was with newfound caution that they set about creating their next dwelling, a realm fortified by mountains, where they might cultivate beauty free from fear. Yet even there, in their newly wrought haven, the memory of Melkor's wrath remained, a warning against complacency in the face of shadow. This devastation forced the Valar to abandon their first dwelling place of Almaren. They retreated to the westernmost reaches of Arda, establishing the blessed realm of Valinor, protected by the Pelori Mountains. Yet the memory of light and the desire to recreate it never left their thoughts. It was in this time of darkness that Yavanna, the giver of fruits and queen of the earth, rose to perhaps her greatest work. Upon the green mound of Ezelohar, also called Corollaire, she prepared to bring forth something entirely new. This was no mere act of growing or tending. It was a profound act of sub-creation, blessed by Eru himself. From the blessed earth arose two saplings, growing ever taller and fairer until they burst into flower. Thus were born the two trees of Valinor, the most renowned of all Yavanna's works, whose fate would become the thread that bound together all tales of the Elder Days. The first to emerge was Telperion, the Elder of the Trees, whose name carries profound meaning in both Quenya and Sindarin. In Quenya, Telpe relates to silver, while Orion suggests a high mount or hill. His leaves were dark, yet their undersides gleamed with a silver light that seemed to capture the very essence of starlight. This radiance would collect as dew, falling in gentle silver rain upon the earth of Valinor, each droplet containing something of the tree's divine light. The second tree was Laurelin, the younger, whose name means Song of Gold. Her creation completed the divine pair, bringing forth a light entirely different from Telperion's silver radiance. Her leaves were edged with gold, and from her branches hung countless clusters of flowers that released a gentle rain of golden light. Each flower blazed with an inner fire, as if capturing the very essence of sunshine before the sun itself existed. The interaction between these two trees created something entirely unique in all of Arda, a perfect cycle of light that would mark time itself in Valinor. Their daily rhythm was precise and beautiful. Each day, each tree waxed in light and waned again to naught. Each day, Telperion would cease his time some 6 hours before Laurelin ceased hers. And each day, Telperion would begin his time again some 6 hours after Laurelin began hers. Thus, in Valinor, twice every day, there came a gentle hour of softer light when both trees were faint and their gold and silver beams were mingled. The Silmarillion, Chapter 1. This cycle created what became known as the Hours of the Trees. In a full day of Valinor, there were 12 hours total where one tree waxed while the other waned. During each transition, there came an hour of gentle twilight where both trees shone together, their gold and silver lights mixing in perfect harmony. These moments of mingled light were considered the most beautiful of all, and it was during these precious hours that the greatest works of art and craft were conceived. The physical properties of the tree's light were unlike anything else in creation. Unlike the later sun and moon, which would merely reflect light, the trees grew their own radiance from within, a unique form of living light that seemed to embody the spirit of Valinor itself. This light could be gathered, preserved, and even contained, as Feanor would later prove with his creation of the Silmarils. To the Valar, the trees embodied a distinct aspect of beauty and power that resonated deeply within their hearts. Manwë, High King of Arda, felt in Telperion's silver glow a harmony with the starlit heavens he so cherished, while Varda, Lady of the Stars, found her artistry reflected in Laurelin's golden bloom, as radiant as the stars she had kindled in the firmament. Yavanna, who had sung the trees into being, regarded them with a mother's love, marveling at the perfection of her creation. Even Ulmo, Lord of Waters, sensed in their light a purity that stirred the deep wells of his ancient wisdom. In the trees, the Valar saw not only light, but the highest expression of their hopes for Arda, a beauty unmarred by the discord of Melkor. The trees' light also had profound effects on the land itself. The grass of Ezelohar, where they grew, was said to glow with their reflected radiance. Their light nourished all living things in Valinor, causing flowers to bloom and trees to grow in ways impossible under any other illumination. Even the air itself seemed to shimmer with their mingled rays, creating what the Eldar would later remember as a perpetual state of early summer. The influence of the two trees extended far beyond their role as mere sources of light. For the Eldar who beheld them, they became the standard against which all beauty would forever be measured. This was especially true for the Noldor, whose creative spirits were ignited by the divine radiance in ways that would echo through the ages of Arda. The Noldorin response to the tree's light was particularly profound. These deep elves, renowned for their craft and wisdom, were inspired to create works of unparalleled beauty as they sought to capture and preserve the tree's divine glory. During this time, the Noldor achieved the height of their artistry, transforming their city of Tirion upon Tuna into a realm filled with light and music. Adorned with jewels, fountains, and magnificent stone halls, the city seemed to embody the very essence of the tree's radiance. Among all the Eldar, none was more affected by the tree's light than Feanor, greatest of all the Noldor. For Feanor, the tree's light was more than mere inspiration. It was an obsession, a mystery that called to his spirit with an almost unearthly allure. He spent long hours observing the mingling beams of Telperion and Laurelin, entranced by their beauty and captivated by the notion that this divine radiance might be captured and held. With each passing day, his desire grew, and he began to see the trees not only as creations of Yavanna, but as vessels of untold power. His obsessions would lead to his greatest and most terrible creation, the Silmarils. Then Feanor, being at the height of his power, began the long and secret labor of his greatest work, and he summoned all his lore and his power and his subtle skill, and at the end of all he made the Silmarils, the great jewels of old, the Silmarillion, Chapter 7. The Silmarils were unique among all creations, for they contained the actual light of the two trees, a living essence rather than a mere reflection or memory. The crystalline structure of the Silmarils, stronger than adamant and unmarred by any force within Arda, served as the body that held their inner fire. This light, held within like the life of the children of Ilúvatar within their forms, gave the jewels an enduring vitality and beauty unmatched in all the realms of Arda. The light of the trees found another profound reflection in Galadriel, who was born in Valinor during their reign. Her golden hair was said to have captured something of Laurelin's radiance, while in her wisdom and power there remained an echo of that ancient light. Indeed, Feanor himself begged 3 times for a single strand of her hair, believing it contained some essence of Laurelin's light, but she refused him each time. Yet even as the trees reached the height of their glory, darkness was growing in secret. Melkor, now freed from his imprisonment and feigning reformation, began to sow discord among the Noldor. More ominously, he had found an ally in Ungoliant, a being of pure darkness and insatiable hunger, whose origin remains one of the great mysteries of Tolkien's mythology. Ungoliant was a creature of particular horror, a being shrouded in mystery and darkness that stood in stark opposition to the light of the trees. The Eldar knew little of her origins, though some tales suggest that she descended from the darkness surrounding Arda in ancient times, when Melkor first cast an envious eye upon the kingdom of Manwë. Initially one of those corrupted to his service, Ungoliant had eventually disowned her master, choosing instead to serve only her insatiable lust, feeding on all things to fill her endless emptiness. The doom of the trees came during a high feast of the Valar, when all of Valinor had gathered to give thanks for their blessings. Taking advantage of this moment, Melkor and Ungoliant approached the trees under the cover of her unlight, a darkness so intense that it actively consumed any light in its path. As they neared the trees, the unlight enveloped their roots, and Melkor, springing upon the mound, struck each tree to its core with a black spear, wounding them so deeply that their sap poured forth like blood upon the ground. Ungoliant, in her insatiable hunger, drained the trees entirely, setting her black beak to their wounds until they withered from root to branch, succumbing to the poison of death that coursed through them. The death of the 2 trees marked more than the end of their physical existence. It was the shattering of an age of innocence in Valinor. Darkness fell upon the blessed realm for the first time since the trees' creation, a darkness made more profound by the memory of the light that was lost. A great darkness fell upon Valinor. Of the deeds of that day much is told in the Aldudeni, that Elimir of the Vanyar made and is known to all the Eldar. Yet no song or tale could contain all the grief and terror that then befell. The Silmarillion, Chapter 8. The Valar themselves were overwhelmed with grief and confusion. Yavanna, who had once sung the trees into existence, now stood before their withered forms, despairing that their light had passed from the world, now surviving only within the Silmarils of Feanor. In sorrow, she acknowledged the foresight of Feanor's creation, lamenting that even for the mightiest under Ilúvatar, some works could be accomplished but once. The light of the trees, she mourned, was a creation that could never again be brought forth within ear. Yet even in this darkest hour, hope was not entirely lost. Before the trees withered completely, Yavanna and Nienna worked together in a final act of creation. Nienna wept for the trees, and her tears brought forth their last gifts: a single silver flower from Telperion and a golden fruit from Laurelin. These final blossoms would give rise to the moon and the sun, bringing new light to the world, though the creation of these celestial bodies came at great sacrifice. The Valar set about crafting vessels worthy of these last remnants of the tree's light. Aule and his people created vessels of crystal and metal, while Varda imbued them with the power to traverse the heavens. Thus were born Anar, the sun, and Isil, the moon, guided by the Maya Arian and Tilion. But these new lights, while magnificent, were only a pale echo of the 2 trees' former glory. Unlike the trees, whose light had been alive and flowed forth unceasingly from within, the sun and moon required renewal and lacked the same depth and vitality. The radiant energy of the trees had been a living essence, a unique creation that could never be replicated fully by any other light in the world. When the vessels of the sun and moon were finally set upon their courses, the Valar gathered to behold their ascent with mingled awe and sorrow. Though these new lights were wondrous in their own right, They bore the poignant reminder of all that had been lost. The elves sang songs of farewell as Tilion and Arion guided the vessels into the heavens, their voices lifting in mournful reverence for the trees whose last gifts would now light the world beyond Valinor. As the sun rose for the first time, its radiance spilling across Middle-earth, the Valar felt a stirring of hope, tempered by the knowledge that this new light could never truly replace the sacred glow of Telperion and Laurelin. This difference between the living light of the trees and the reflected light of the sun and moon speaks to a profound theme in Tolkien's mythology, the gradual diminishment of magic and wonder in the world. Each age brings new beauty, but also carries the shadow of what was lost. The trees' influence continued to echo through the ages in unexpected ways, most notably through the lineage of the White Tree of Gondor. This line of trees could be traced back to Galathilion, a tree Yavanna had created in the image of Telperion. The elves gifted Galathilion to the Isle of Tol Eressëa, where it flourished, giving rise to many seedlings. From these came the White Tree of Númenor, and eventually the White Tree of Gondor, a living symbol that carried an echo of Telperion's ancient light across generations. The light of the trees found another path of preservation through Erendil's star. Bearing a Silmaril upon his brow as he sailed the heavens, Erendil carried with him the last pure light of the trees visible to Middle-earth. This light would later be captured in Galadriel's phial, which she gave to Frodo, a gift that would prove crucial in his darkest hour. In Lothlorien, under Galadriel's rule, some echo of the tree's light lingered. The Golden Wood, as it was called by men, captured something of Laurelin's radiance, while Galadriel's power preserved a memory of that ancient light. As Sam Gamgee would later observe, it was a light that seemed to come from another age entirely. The very rhythm of time itself was woven by the light of the two trees. Their creation marked the dawn of the years of the trees, and their passing heralded the first age of the sun. Among the lore masters, it is held that each year of the trees spanned roughly 9.582 of the years that men now reckon under the sun. By this measure, the days of the trees endured for what might be counted as 14,373 years. Yet these numbers remain as distant as starlight, mere echoes of an age when time was touched by a radiance long since lost to the world. For the elves who witnessed their glory, the memory of the two trees became both a blessing and a burden. Those who had seen their light carried it forever in their hearts, but also knew that nothing in Middle-earth could ever compare to that lost radiance. This bittersweet remembrance became a defining characteristic of the Eldar, manifesting in their art, their songs, and their longing for the West. The two trees exemplify several of Tolkien's most profound themes: the power of creative acts, the inevitability of loss in a fallen world, and the way that beauty, once experienced, leaves an indelible mark on the soul. Their story reminds us that even the most perfect creations can be vulnerable to destruction, yet their influence can echo through time in ways their creators never imagined. As we look back across the vast expanse of Tolkien's legendarium, the two trees stand as perhaps his most potent symbol of the world that was lost, a world of pure light and uncorrupted beauty. Their light, though long vanquished from physical form, continues to illuminate the imagination of readers, much as their memory illuminated the hearts of the Eldar throughout the ages of Middle-earth. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most profound tales in Tolkien's mythology. If you enjoyed this exploration of the two trees of Valinor, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with fellow travelers in Middle-earth. Until our paths cross again beneath the light of stars that still carry an echo of Telperion and Laurelin's ancient glory, farewell.